Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
Well, you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Sexual anarchy.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Wednesday, midweek. We got a great show for you all today. Lots of fun, and of course, we all have varying degrees of what we think is fun. Yes, I'll be calling out conservatives, as usual. Including we've got a Florida senator. Anytime you bring up Florida, by the way, you know it's going to be good. We got a Florida senator arguing that hey, you know the whole LGBT thing? Yeah, it turns out not permanent. Fun. That should be interesting. I will show those comments and I will dissect it. We also have, of course, Russian clerics blaming the gay. Yep, the gay. We have Lauren Boebert having a bit of a moment, a bit of a senior moment. Weird. We've got MSNBC. We have a host that's like, oh, you know what? It turns out it's kind of crazy that we depend on foreign oil. Oil from authoritarians. If only there was something that we could do that would stop that. We have the case against Fox News and a whole bunch of stuff. So let's dive into those stories. Before we do, please like and share the stream. Very, very important that you do so. It helps us out greatly. And then, well, let's get into it. Let's start off with a Russian cleric. All right. Since the invasion of Ukraine by Russian forces, there's been a lot of talk about the real reasons behind this, why this had happened. Was it the expansion of NATO? Was it the resurrection of the Soviet Empire? Was it the official Russian narrative of, oh, no, we got to invade Ukraine, and we actually can't call it an invasion, but we have to go into Ukraine and we have to denazify it. Yes, denazify it. Interesting. Now, one Russian Orthodox cleric, he says, no, the real reason we had to go into Ukraine, we didn't have a choice, was to go in and stop the gay. All right, so now, this is not just any Russian cleric, by the way. who, by the way, did not put many of his stat points into intelligence. All the stat points went to like piety, but none in intelligence, apparently. I know, I'm totally nerding out on you guys. But this is Patriarch Kirill, who is the head of the Russian Orthodox Church. In a recent sermon, he spelled it out. Take a look. Quote, for 8 years, there have been efforts to destroy what exists in Donbass. What exists in the Donbass is a rejection, a principled rejection of the so-called values that are now being offered by those who lay claim to global domination. Right. Now, today, there's a certain test of loyalty to that power, a certain pass into that happy world that are now being offered by those, into that happy world, the world of excessive consumption, the world of illusory freedom. Do you know what that test is? It's awful. It's very simple, but also horrific. It's a gay parade. What? Oh, okay. Oh, whoa, hold on. It's a gay, horrific, somehow gay parade. Wait, what? Okay, he continues. He said the demand to hold a gay parade is in fact a test for loyalty to that powerful world. And we know that if people or countries resist this demand, they are excluded from that world and treated as alien. You know, nailed it. They got us. They got us. Yep. I'm not even kidding. Accepting of the gay, allowing gay pride parades, that is actually the mark of a good and tolerant society. Good. I think this is a positive. That's Cleric. Not so positive. Yes, but it does make for a happy world. I mean, look, gay, just another synonym for happy, right? Happy, yes, I like it. Hey, turns out when people are given actual freedom to be themselves, yes, they happen to be more happy. Who knew? That said, the region that he's talking about, Donbass, who he said, well, that's what we had to liberate because there's too much gay. Well, Eastern Donbass turns out not exactly all that free or tolerant of the gay. Turns out they didn't really have a problem with, gay parades everywhere, gay pride parades everywhere, which again probably would have brightened up the place quite a bit. Probably would have helped. So that said, Freedom House gives the Eastern Donbass region a freedom rating of about 4 out of 100, ahead only of North Korea, Syria, Tibet, Turkmenistan, and South Sudan. So now to sit there and say that, oh no, see, this is why Putin had to go in. He had no choice. He had to go in and save people from the evils of pride. Look, deeply homophobic. But again, what do you expect, right? The Russian government is deeply anti-gay. They banned so-called gay propaganda for minors, which basically is kind of a little bit what the whole goal of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill is. But it takes that and makes it even more expansive. You can't even have any public events that promote LGBTQ rights. It's banned. You will get arrested if you do so. Anybody who thinks that that's a free society, anybody who thinks that that is something that we in the United States need to emulate, the right wing, is nobody that I want to be associated with. That's not freedom. That's not liberty. That's bigoted. That's hateful. It is no wonder why the right wing absolutely adores Vladimir Putin and the right wing government of Russia and these Orthodox clerics. By the way, some of the right wingers in America are people like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon recently praised Vladimir Putin on his podcast for being not woke and saying, oh yeah, Russia's so great because they don't have pride flags. F off. Not only that, but look, going back to freedom in Russia, well, they've essentially banned anything except for state press. Now, technically, they're supposed to have freedom of the press, right? But of course, it's not freedom in practice. You have a lot of news agencies that have been shut down, especially ones that are in the left that are critical of what's going on in Ukraine, of the attack in Ukraine. And so they've really clamped down on press freedom. And what's left are people that unfortunately have to choose to self-censor. And so there's a lot of censorship going on. Now, we're the free speech warriors, right? By the way, yeah, you can get about you can get up to 15 years in prison for spreading what the Kremlin calls fake news. So they have taken what Donald Trump is saying and said, oh yeah, no, fake news. That's the term. But if you spread fake news, what we consider to be fake news, or really what is politically incorrect, and that's what it is. It comes down to political correctness. Well, if you say that, well, you go to prison for 15 years. You can, anyway. And by the way, you're not even allowed to call it a war in Russia. Again, I ask you, where are the free speech warriors? Where's Dave Rubin? Dave Rubin's gay. You would think that he would want to weigh in on this and not kiss Putin's ass. Where's Glenn Greenwald? Glenn Greenwald, where are you? You are also a free speech warrior, right? So-called. You are also gay. Why are you not calling out the Putin regime? What are you doing? Are you talking about the rampant homophobia by the Russian Orthodox Church, by the Putin government? Are you talking about the massive censorship that is going on in Russia as a result of this conflict and Putin? No. I didn't think so. No. Look, Dave Rubin pretends to be a liberal. I'm a classical liberal. What are you talking about? I was on the left, but I didn't leave the left. The left left me. That's what happened. No, you got a paycheck, dude. You got a big paycheck for selling out. And he took it. Look, they're too busy trying to own the libs and repeating talking points crafted by the right-wing government of Russia. So this is disgusting. This is sick. Blaming this on gay people. I mean, come on. It really does illustrate how fundamentalists of, a feather will stick together. American conservatives, look, their groups are out there using their religion to spread hatred and fear to other people, not because they actually believe in this stuff, but because they actually want power. How do you get power? Well, you designate another, and then you rally people against the other. That's what they're doing. And everybody who wants power will do the same thing, the right wing here in America as well. And then, of course, you go and you claim that everyone else is dirty, immoral. They're, bad people. And so, no, what's going on is those people, they are immoral. They're the immoral ones. You are wrong. You are hateful, and you are evil. Not gay people. If you're preaching hatred against gay people, you are evil. You brought that hatred into the world. You spread that hatred all around. You made people afraid of their neighbors. You made the violence that they suffer at the hands of your followers. This cleric is no different than the mullahs in Iran or the fundamentalists here in the United States. Their hatred knows absolutely no bounds. And their excuses for Putin's war, because it is his war. This isn't the Russian people's war. The Russian people didn't have anything to do with this, right? He launched this war. He sidestepped diplomacy for violence because he is a right-wing authoritarian. And understand, that's all they know is violence. Their excuses are absolutely disgusting. And if you're defending them, well, God help you. As far as this cleric goes, he is one sick, evil son of a bitch. There. Goddamn right, Dango, I'm immoral. The massive censorship in America is different. It sounds like whataboutism. And yes, while there is censorship, there's the self-censorship, etc. It's nowhere near what we see going on in authoritarian countries. Again, that really feels like whataboutism. And I'm actually really getting tired of the whataboutism arguments. All right, moving on. Okay, here we go. During debate of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, Senator Ileana Garcia claimed that, no, this bill, this is not a bad bill. I support this bill because the gay isn't permanent. Take a look.
LGBT is not a permanent thing, and it's not a bad thing. I say with all due respect, when they say targeting, this isn't at all about targeting. I think this is about perhaps rerouting the responsibilities back to the parents, which is what I think that this bill wants to once again delineate. When I introduce my friends, I don't say, this is my best gay friend. No, this is my best friend. Or this is my lesbian aunt. No, this is my aunt. You know, people are people because of their qualities, not because of their identity and their sexuality. You will never, ever find Senator Garcia pandering the LGBT community for a vote, ever. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans. One thing is sexuality, and another thing is identity. You can identify as the opposite, but not necessarily like the opposite sex. I'll give you an example. A very good friend of mine, trans, went through the whole transition as an older man, 58 years old, became a woman, and guess what? He still likes women. He still likes women. He went through the whole process. And we'd laugh together and I'd say, why do you want to deal with the hormones? Why do you want to have to worry about the extensions and the hair and the boobs and the nails? And he loved it. And when he went through the transition and had an experience, a sexual experience, he realized that he continued to like women.
So, see, the gay, it's not permanent. You see, I got a trans friend, right? No, I very much doubt that she has a trans friend. A real friend would not sit there and misgender that person for an entire speech, right? Several times. Let's make one thing clear. If you're a transgender woman, you're a woman. That's it. Nobody introduces their trans friend and says, oh, by the way, this is my trans friend. And so this is my gay friend. No, this is somebody, look, understand that this is somebody who has either no gay or trans friends, or, and we've seen this before, right, is a transphobe or a homophobe that just happens to have a friend that is part of that community. And the reason that I liken this is, or liken this to, is there are people who are racist that have black friends, right? But now what do they always say? Because there's a cognitive dissonance here, right? Well, that's okay. So I believe in 1350, and that black people are mostly criminals and they're lazy, but not my friend Jamal. Jamal's a good guy. He's one of the good ones. I like Jamal, and if I applied the things that I think about other black people, like there's some sort of monolith to Jamal, well, then that would be very awkward. And so, Jamal, he's fine. He's one of the good ones. No, that's ridiculous. And by the way, those same people tend to be, using that friendship as a shield to deflect from charges of racism. What do you mean? I can't be racist. I have a black friend. Bigot? How dare you call me a bigot? I've got gay friends. Well, you just ignored everything about what it actually is to be LGBTQ. I mean, you intentionally misgendered your friend, and then you said, well, see, the gay, understand gay, it's not really permanent. Yes, it is. You don't just get the gay, and then suddenly later on, you can get the ungay. That's not what happens. It's not reality. I mean, that's what is really funny about Milo Yiannopoulos, right? You remember that guy? Got in trouble, right? And then comes out, his so-called redemption arc is, well, see, I went through gay therapy, and I'm no longer gay. Look at that. I'm so straight and Christian now. Look at me. No, dude, you still gay. You're just way into the closet. The thing is, people are born gay, and that's the way they are for the rest of their lives. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. It shouldn't even be an issue. Now, finally, the dumbest take of all, of course, is how she arrived to this answer, right? Well, my friend, transitioned, and she still likes women. And that would make her a lesbian. Because she's a woman and likes women. I mean, this is not hard. Yes, she's LGBTQ, and yes, gay, trans and gay. Yes, that's a thing. This is not, again, super not difficult. Now, she also claimed, a lot of people don't think that, I think that the statistics are that 4 out of 7 people who do the full transition end up committing suicide because that's tough, because it's tough. Okay, hold on. So now, obviously, her statistics, not true. Okay. Is there an issue with self-harm? Is there an issue with suicide among, LGBT, especially transgender youth? Yes, of course. You want to know why that is? Well, it's people like this lady. Society telling them that they're wrong, that they're sinful, that they're gross, that they're an abomination, they're immoral, that they're predators, that all they are is just guys wearing dresses that are, dressing up and going into girls' bathrooms and trying to, be rapists. No, that's not the reality. That's not the reality. And if you continue to spread those incredibly dangerous, hateful stereotypes, then yes, you are going to hurt people. You are going to lead them to harm themselves. You wonder why people in the trans community, specifically, black transgender females are at such high risk. Not only are they at high risk of harming themselves, but also of being assaulted. That's what happens. So no, these people are part of the problem, along with legislation that bans trans women from, girls' sports in high school, and bills like Don't Say Gay. All right. Moving on. White ones too, but yes, but the community that is most attacked and vilified just happens to be black transgender women. So yeah. All right. Moving on here, let's go to Lauren Boebert.
And I don't know who's running the federal government these days, Joe Biden or Prince John Prince John, but they're taxing us into poverty.
That was Representative Lauren Boebert having a bit of a problem with speaking and creating an analogy. So, no, this was a discussion, during a discussion on Fox News over gas prices and taxation, apparently. Now, that's hilarious because it kind of reminds me of the Republican tax plan from Rick Scott. So I talked about this yesterday in the show. Rick Scott's plan would literally raise taxes, specifically on poor people, while, of course, leaving rich people alone. And so, okay, sure, it doesn't seem to be the Democrats or Joe Biden that wants to tax the crap out of working people, out of the poor. But anyway, she then wonders, who's running the government? Who's running the government? Well, that would be Congress, along with the President of the United States. You know, who's a member of Congress? Who is a member of Congress? Well, it happens to be Lauren Boebert. And so, do you know what Lauren Boebert hasn't done while being in office? Anything. Lauren Boebert hasn't passed anything. She hasn't helped the passage of any bill that would actually help the American people. Now, she has introduced a lot of bullshit. For example, one of her bills that she had introduced into Congress would designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Yes, because that should be the focus right now. Well, there's another one. Impeaching Kamala Harris. Oh, yeah, okay. Stopping the Biden caravan, the Joe Biden caravan. What caravan? I'm not kidding. These are actual bills that she has introduced into Congress. She has also introduced the Stop AOC Act. Really? Her whole legislative agenda is nothing but culture war garbage. Garbage. Nothing that she has introduced would actually help the average working class American whatsoever. In fact, when it comes to things that actually might help you, you know, improve your material conditions, like, for example, Build Back Better. Well, she had joined the 211 other Republicans that voted against Build Back Better in the House. Now, it passed the House, but it's stuck in the Senate. It ain't going anywhere. It's effectively dead. With no help, of course, from Republicans in the Senate, as well as Lauren Boebert. So it's almost as if Lauren Boebert is just worthless and doesn't actually do anything. Like, her entire job is to troll Democrats and to try to get wealthy while doing so. As for Prince John, no, so I'm trying to figure out what kind of reference she was trying to make. The only thing that I can think of is Robin Hood, right? Where John apparently was part of the group that was robbing the poor to give it to the rich. Hey, you know what that sounds like? The Republican Party. Their constant upward redistribution of wealth to the rich and corporations. That's very strange. And by the way, it's not just Republicans. You have corporate Democrats that do the same thing. But, you know, I mean, she's the last one to try to complain about this when she's absolutely done nothing. Nothing. Now, one last point here. And I just want to note it for the record, because this is a point that Republicans tend to bring up a lot. President Joe Biden has some issues with stuttering, right? He's got some issues with stuttering. He's got some issues with speaking, messes up his words. You know, and now in the right-wing mind, that somehow proves that he is not mentally fit for office due to his age. Well, okay, Joe Biden is an older gentleman, of course, but what's Lauren Boebert's excuse then? Just asking. Just curious. All right. Moving forward. With the Russian invasion into Ukraine sending gas prices to record highs, as well as, of course, oil industry profits, President Biden has been looking to alternative sources of oil from other countries, for example, Venezuela and Iran, Saudi Arabia. Now, an MSNBC anchor in this discussion about gas prices is actually going to bring up an interesting point, how it might not be a good idea to be so dependent on other countries for energy.
It also, something that Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut brought up today was this just exposes how insane it is that we rely on energy from authoritarian leaders, and we are not self-reliant on our own energy. A lot of talk about why we don't go green.
You don't say. There's a lot of talk about going green. Yeah, maybe there should have been a long time ago. So look, now, yes, we do only use 8% of Russian imports. So now, why the price spike then? Well, obviously, corporate greed. The wealthiest 10 oil companies have together made $46 billion in profits within just the first quarter of this year. So now, all right, that's a lot of profit, obviously. Now, I'm not saying that the invasion into Ukraine isn't a cause of the increase in prices. Yes, but again, you really have to talk about this corporate greed, where you have these companies that will take advantage of a crisis and jack up the price of oil, which again translates into higher prices for gasoline. And so now, there's different arguments here, though, that we're hearing from the right wing. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about that for just a second, because I see this a lot. Oh, see, the reason the gas is so high is because we don't have the Keystone XL pipeline. Biden canceled the Keystone pipeline. And that would have done what exactly? It's a pipeline, but that doesn't mean that the oil isn't already being shipped. It's just being transported in a different way. And by the way, it gets transported and then guess what? Exported out to other countries. The United States, and this is going to blow your mind, under Joe Biden is the world's top oil producer. Weird. Now, here's the thing, though. The American people, do not own the oil. Despite the oil produced in this country being our own natural resources. No, we don't own it. The corporations own it. The corporations, these private corporations, they will go in, they'll drill, and they'll take our oil out of the ground. And what will they do with it? What do they do with it? Well, they sell it to whoever's going to pay the most. Now, these companies theoretically could take that oil, they could take what they produce and stop exporting it to other countries. They could sell it domestically only in order to bring prices down. Now, of course, they're not going to do that, right? Because they like it when the prices are high because that means more profit. They have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profit for their shareholders. That's the point. Now, what Biden could do unilaterally, he could do this today, is he could say, okay, we're just going to ban you from exporting. Companies, we will ban you from exporting oil from the United States. You can no longer do that. You have to sell it here. Now, he could do that. Could do that. Could do it today. Could do it tomorrow. Could do it next week. Instead, he's going and asking Nicolas Maduro over in Venezuela. Now, the Iranians being basically ignored by the Saudis. Like, there was an article, recent article in The Hill, where apparently Saudi Arabia, it's a little salty at Joe Biden, and they refuse to take his calls. So now there's precedent for the president actually doing that, and basically keeping oil produced domestically in the country. Jimmy Carter did it back in the 1970s. Now, could you imagine, and I'm sure conservatives cried and howled back then, right? Who are right now, by the way, blaming Biden for high gas prices. Biden doesn't control gas prices. What is he supposed to do? Wave a magic wand? I mean, I don't know if you all remember George W. Bush when gas prices were high under the Bush administration, a Republican, where he was saying, I wish I had a magic wand, no gas. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have the ability to do so, but he does have the ability to do a couple of the things that I'm suggesting. So now, that said, do people have a right to complain about gas prices? Of course. They're hurting regular working people. Yes. And by the way, regular working class people are already having an incredibly difficult time affording the basics for survival. Now they have to, spend even more to fill up their tank to go to work. So it's a really, really terrible situation for regular working people. Now, that said, imagine how much Republicans and Republican politicians, mainly, would cry if Biden told the oil companies that they couldn't export the oil and therefore not make as much profit. Well, will somebody please sneak it back to ExxonMobil? How will they ever buy their fifth mega yacht? Does that ever happen? But that's actually the least of the other options, right? If you want to solve gas prices and actually be energy independent, because that's something that it gets thrown around too, a term that essentially means nothing. Oh, you don't understand. We need to be energy independent. The right always says that. You know what that actually is code for? It's code for drill, baby, drill. That's what that is. Drill more so the oil corporations can then sell more to the world market and increase production. That's all it is. And by the way, what happens? We also increase our profits. But no, the only way, I guess, for Biden to really be energy independent for the United States is to nationalize the oil. That's right. Make the oil, okay, you're talking about American energy. Well, it's literally now American energy. We own it. And now, since the government owns it, well, they can set any price they want. And guess what? Politicians would be incentivized to keep that price low. Nationalize oil. Oh, right. We can't do that, though. You know why? Because that would be socialism. We can't have that. So obviously they would whine and cry so much. Now the other option here, and I think this is the better option, is to invest in renewable energy. And by the way, obviously you can mix and match here. I wouldn't care. Yes, nationalize the oil and invest in renewable energy. In fact, use all the use all the oil profits, and invest that in renewable energy. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Oh, I can see conservative heads explode already. Their hair is on fire. But yes, we should absolutely, regardless, double down on investing in renewable energy. Because, hey, you know what? You can't turn off the sun. You can't turn off solar panels, okay? There's always going to be wind somewhere. And I know this isn't the unpopular position, but nuclear power. Now, of course, nuclear, is expensive to set up, but it's a viable source of energy that actually doesn't add carbon to the atmosphere. And guess what? You don't have to depend on Saudi Arabia. You don't have to depend on Russia. By the way, Saudi Arabia is currently bombing Yemen into the Stone Age. There's a famine going on. People are dying in Yemen. And by the way, our bombs are killing people in Yemen. So, I mean, that right there, if you're actually worried about humanitarian rights, well, then maybe we shouldn't be doing business with Saudi Arabia anyway. But of course, right? But here's the thing. You know how much the price of wind increased after Russia invaded Ukraine? Nothing. No increase. You know how much more expensive it is to get energy from the sun after Russia invaded Ukraine? Oh, right. Nothing. Zero. So, and it's because it's actual energy independence. You don't have to go to these other countries to go and set up a wind farm. That's what I'm saying. Look, these are our options. As I mentioned before, energy independence is just a code word for let corporations drill and take and sell more oil and increase more profits. Understand that that's who Republicans and a lot of Democrats, unfortunately, work for. They know that so much of our foreign policy, and by the way, so many of the wars going on right now, are a result of fighting over fossil fuels. And so much of our foreign policy in the United States is dictated by oil companies and profits. They benefit no matter what we do, unless we do, of course, one of these options or some sort of combination in order to get us ultimately away from fossil fuels. All right. All right. We have an update to the defamation suit against Fox News filed by election software company Smartmatic. So now the judge presiding over that case against Fox recently cited a Fox host that we all know, Tucker Carlson, as evidence that the network is guilty of spreading malicious lies against the company. So now the New York Supreme Court Judge David Cohen had released a 61-page ruling on Wednesday denying Fox News' motion to dismiss Smartmatic's $2.7 billion lawsuit. So that's really, really important. Fox, of course, has said, oh, no, we're going to try to counter-sue. We're going to try to get that dismissed because we think that is absolutely ridiculous and it is against our free speech. Well, you can have free speech, but there are consequences to speech, especially if you knowingly lie about other groups or other people. And so that is defamation. So now the company had filed their lawsuit after the 2020 election, claiming that Fox News had damaged their reputation by airing unsubstantiated allegations that Smartmatic was part of a massive conspiracy to fraudulently swing ballots away from former President Donald Trump. And so again, that is the big lie. That is something that Fox News and the right wing, former President Donald Trump, have latched onto. In fact, Donald Trump can't stop talking about it. Everywhere he goes, every speech he makes, he says the same thing. Oh, they stole, Joe Biden stole the election from me. We got the fake ballots, and we got the voter fraud. It's mass voter fraud. None of it's true. None of it's been proven true. There's no evidence of any of fraud, at least mass voter fraud. Obviously, there are some instances of in-person voter fraud or mail-in ballot fraud, which ironically, in a lot of those cases, I should say most of those cases that I've run into and that I've looked at involve Republicans. Weird how that works out. There is a retirement community in Florida called The Villages that's a hotspot of Republican voter fraud. 4 people have been arrested so far for sending fraudulent ballots, for trying to do voter fraud. But anyway, no, that's not what Donald Trump's alleging. He's alleging that, of course, millions of Democrats or these voting machines, something or other, well, they changed the election. They stole the election from him. And so he's very, very salty about this. Now, that said, Trump's conspiracy theory, this conspiracy theory, got a lot of attention and got spread very far and wide, not just through social media, but places like Fox News, especially hosts like Tucker Carlson. In fact, the judge had identified Carlson as arguably the single most influential conservative media personality in the United States, and said that it is precisely because of his skepticism that the case might meet the standard of actual malice because they continue to air election conspiracies. Now, Tucker Carlson, you know his shtick, right? So he comes out and he says, well, you know, I'm just asking questions, right? But if what Sidney Powell is saying is true, remember the Kraken lawyer, well, if what she's saying is true, this could be the biggest crime, arguably the biggest crime in American history. Even while saying that, and even while pointing out that, well, we don't really have evidence yet, they continued, and Carlson specifically, continued to spread election conspiracies. Here's a statement, the judge's statement from page 39. Quote, ironically, the statements of Tucker Carlson, perhaps the most popular Fox News host, militate most strongly in favor of a possible finding that there is a substantial basis that Fox News acted with actual malice. As noted above, in November 19, 2020, Lou Dobbs posted a video of he and Powell on Twitter with a caption stating, inter alia, that Powell has no doubt that Dominion voting machines run Smartmatic software, which allows it to manipulate the votes. Now, who gave Sidney Powell a lot of airtime? Lou Dobbs and Tucker Carlson. Now, the same day, Carlson had wrote an article stating that for over a week, Powell had been claiming that the election had been stolen, and that if Powell were correct, it would be the greatest crime in American history, and thus asked her to substantiate her comments. Powell never provided the evidence requested by Carlson, and President Trump's campaign advised Carlson that it knew of no such evidence. And this is where it's really, really important, right? The Trump campaign gave him no evidence. Sidney Powell gave no evidence. And yet, even knowing that there is no evidence, even by the parties that are claiming fraud, he still ran these election conspiracies and reported on them as if they were true, as if there was, oh yes, definitely doubt in our electoral process. We're just asking questions, so we're just asking questions. So now the judge writes, therefore, there are sufficient allegations that Fox News knew or should have known that Powell's claim was false and purposely ignored the efforts of its most prominent anchor to obtain substantiation of claims of wrongdoing by Smartmatic. So now, I've said this before, Tucker Carlson isn't stupid. I don't think he's a stupid person. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's a bad actor. He knows, of course, that there's no evidence. He knows there never was evidence. He knows that there will never turn up any evidence. And that, of course, the mass voter fraud didn't actually happen. He knew that Sidney Powell was never going to be able to give him evidence because it didn't exist. But he continued to talk about this, continued to spread the idea that this is, definitely possible, right? Why? Because his viewership ate it up. The Fox base loves this conspiracy theory. They do. They tuned into anybody who supported it. Again, they've been primed for so many years to believe that there is voter fraud, that there is these caravans. Tucker himself has talked about white replacement theory, the great replacement, I should say, where George Soros is bringing in caravans of immigrants into this country. And what are these immigrants are doing? Well, they're voting, obviously, in their mind. And they're voting for Democrats. And so they're replacing us. By the way, that's a deeply anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Again, George Soros. There's that. Again, no evidence of that. But it doesn't matter. And so to Carlson, knowing all of this, knowing how much the base loves him, knowing how he's on top as a result of this, well, the choice is clear. Keep questioning the results of the election, keep airing these conspiracy theories, or and get massive viewership. Of course, that means Fox News will protect them because they're going to protect their highest asset, their best asset, while also risking defamation, or decide to not air these conspiracy theories and lose his top spot to somebody else. I don't know who. But again, maybe Sean Hannity. I don't know. Now, that said, I believe Tucker Carlson knows what he's doing. Now, another person that's noted in this, I'm not entirely sure. And that's Rudy Giuliani. Now, Rudy Giuliani is also being sued by Smartmatic. In fact, on page 54 of Cohen's ruling, he goes into Giuliani's comments about Smartmatic, referred to as SUSA in the filing, and noted how that they were not the same, quite the same thing as defamation. Interesting. It also places a focus on how Giuliani claims Smartmatic was founded for, quote, the specific purpose of fixing elections, and that it was a dangerous foreign company with close ties to Venezuela and China, all of that not true at all, and that Smartmatic cheated the election for the Democrats because their chairman is very, very close to, once again, George Soros. So, I mean, there's, and all of this was echoed by, again, Sidney Powell, who basically alleged, oh, you know, this whole thing is like, software that was created by the ghost of Hugo Chavez to steal the election for for Joe Biden, because Hugo Chavez, obviously a very big Biden fan. It seems very strange, considering how the Biden administration, the Obama administration, not exactly the friendliest towards Venezuela. Just saying. Now, page 55 also argues that Giuliani might have met the actual malice standard as well. Giuliani's barrage of statements about SUSA adequately provide a substantial basis for its claim that he acted with actual malice, insofar as he evinced a reckless disregard for the truth of his statements and or a high degree of belief that the said information was false. Indeed, there's a substantial basis upon which to find that Giuliani's representations regarding SUSA are so inherently improbable, that only a reckless person would have put them in circulation. Well, I mean, if you're talking about reckless, Giuliani, very reckless. Does not seem to be the, most stable guy. I'm just saying. I mean, again, I think he's reckless. I think he's stupid, Giuliani. That said, the judge seems to believe that Giuliani knew exactly what he was doing. I think, personally, watching him, I don't know. I still think that's debatable because, it's Giuliani. But maybe it's because I've never really had a high opinion of Giuliani. But anyway, aside from referring to the flimsy evidence Giuliani provided against Smartmatic, the ruling also noted that Giuliani lost his law license last year because of the uncontroverted evidence, quote, that he pushed demonstrably false and misleading statements to courts, lawmakers, and the public at large, as in his capacity as lawyer for former President Donald J. Trump and the Trump campaign. Giuliani is the central figure in Fox's alleged defamation conspiracy against Smartmatic, and Cohen ruled in a statement that Fox News turned a blind eye to a litany of outrageous claims about plaintiffs, unprecedented in the history of American elections, so inherently improbable that it evinced a reckless disregard for the truth. Well, nothing describes Fox News more than a place that has a reckless disregard for the truth. Now, of course, in American media, you are allowed to lie to people. You can lie to your audience. That's what Fox News does day in and day out. But what they're not able to do is defame them, knowing that these are incredibly scandalous, false, reckless claims that with intent to do harm to a company. Now, look, you can, spread some pretty vicious things about politicians or public figures, and there's a line on free speech versus defamation or libel. But in this case, this is a company whose future profits were put in jeopardy. Now, if it's one thing the American courts and the American justice system always tends to favor, it's corporate profits. So Giuliani, Carlson, and others that are named in this, for example, Lou Dobbs, Maria Bartiromo, they did damage to the future earnings potential of a fellow corporation. I don't think anybody really talks about that, how that really is the most important factor here in determining, or one of the most important factors here in determining whether or not Fox News or these people are going to be held accountable. Because we're not just talking about talking heads going after a politician. Again, they say some of the most vile things about Democrats, whatever, nobody cares, right? That's not considered libel or defamation or anything like that. But they went after a corporation. And in this country, especially when it comes to false and defamatory things, you just can't do that. Interesting how that works out. That said, the people that I named before, Carlson, Giuliani, Maria Bartiromo, and Lou Dobbs, the case will go forward against them. Now, there was one person who Cohen did toss the claims out for, and that's Jeanine Pirro. Interesting. Now, Jeanine Pirro, I guess I can understand that because she really does sound like she's crazy. I mean, look, maybe she was just drunk the whole time, didn't know what she was talking about. I don't know. I heard those were the rumors. Those were the rumors. Either way, the suit will continue. Tucker and Giuliani, of course, seem to be the two of the bigger fish, but there's one person who has been spreading this around rather baselessly, rather maliciously, and that's patient zero, Donald Trump. Why then are they not going after Trump yet? Hey, I'm just asking questions. The people want to know why. All right. All right. So, that hour flew by. Okay. Not gonna lie, but I'm shocked that Lou Dobbs is still alive. Who knew? Yeah, well, good for him. Having money apparently has its perks. Let's just say that. Okay, so before we go, read some super chats here. I think they're going up the chain. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. Fracture Dragon from yesterday said, off topic, I live in Westland. My representative is Rashida Tlaib, and she's awesome. Hey, that's great. That is fantastic. Dango Bango with a couple of super chats here. I'm tired of people bringing up American war crimes and Azov to distract and move the goalposts and conversation away from Putin's illegal genocide. Yeah, look, nobody out here is not claiming that there aren't neo-Nazis or Nazis in Ukraine. The Azov battalion is literally incorporated into the Ukrainian military. That's a problem, right? Now, does that mean that the entire Ukrainian army is neo-Nazi? No. And when you look at the actual political power that neo-Nazis have in Ukraine, not very substantial. I think they got, 3% of the vote, I believe? One seat in parliament, which, I think one seat is way too many. But to say that they have a unique Nazi problem that is bad enough for their neighboring country to invade them is kind of ridiculous. I mean, we have a Nazi problem here in the United States. Russia has a Nazi problem. Is it fine that Canada invade us? Well, Canada also has a Nazi problem. Should we invade Canada? If countries were going after other countries because they wanted to denazify them, then every country would just invade each other because Nazis are pretty much everywhere. So, I mean, the whole thing is kind of ridiculous. And yes, it is whataboutism. It is a bit of a distraction. So, anyway, so that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. And yes, by the way, Nobody's ignoring that there is a Nazi problem there. And nobody's ignoring that there's a media problem in the United States and that there's also an American war crime problem in the United States. It's just what you have here is whenever you bring that up, and this is why it's whataboutism, is that when you bring up the problems that are going on in Ukraine, problems that, by the way, you know, we've covered the problems here in the United States with all of those issues. But when you bring it up in Ukraine for another country, they used it, well, what about the United States? Well, we've already talked about in depth of what the United States has done. Now we're talking about what's going on in Ukraine, which is an important issue because it's a relevant issue. But no, the whataboutism is to distract from that and to take the focus off of that. And you got to wonder why. You got to wonder why. Do you think we don't have Nazis serving? We absolutely do. By the way, I've talked about stories where you've had, you know, not Nazi infiltration into local law enforcement and the military. So that's an issue. That's a huge issue here in the United States. And something that we've talked about all the time. Again, on this show, I've done many different segments where we've talked about infiltration into law enforcement, infiltration of right-wing neo-Nazi ideology into the military. And so that whataboutism is just absolutely ridiculous when we're talking about another country having, yes, a neo-Nazi battalion that exists and shouldn't be armed, shouldn't get weapons, shouldn't get any support, and has, yes, been absorbed into the ranks of the Ukrainian military during an invasion. Again, the whataboutism just drives me absolutely crazy on this. We have a major political party filled with Nazis in the US. Yes, also true. MTG was at a neo-Nazi event. I talked about that as well with Nick Fuentes, a Nazi problem all over the world. Exactly. And it doesn't give any justification for any invasions. That's not a justification. So, all right, anyway. Dingabangle adds, and yet Putin is committing a genocide. Reports are coming through the Russian bombers, dropping bombs on civilians, fleeing with the intent to cripple. Again, all these reports are coming in. We just got to remember that there is a fog of war. I've seen reports earlier of Russians targeting the hospital in Mariupol. So, you know, I mean, those would be war crimes if they turn out to be true. They would absolutely be war crimes. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. So, yeah. Jules T, thank you for becoming a member, by the way. If you want to become a member, hit the join button below. Let's see. Nothing going much on Twitch here. But if you want to help us on Twitch, you can always become a subscriber as well. I'd really appreciate it. And you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/chefwaldorf, to become a patron and support the show as well. And Facebook, and give stars. Thank you for the people who have and who have become subscribers as well there. So there's a lot of different ways you can support the show. Learner Reader says, yeah, U.S. fly zone is okay. Is that not whataboutism? Who's out here advocating? Well, I'm not advocating for a no-fly zone. That'd be a terrible idea because it would get us into a war with Russia. And look, by the way, on the issue of war crimes, if you do want to bring up how the United States has done war crimes and how we're not exactly, I should say the United States government isn't exactly the best to be able to point that out because we don't have a clean record. That's fair. That's fair. And again, there's a difference between valid criticism and bringing up whataboutism, because whataboutism usually has a pretty clear objective to try to deflect from what the other party is doing by pointing out the first party's faults. So, yeah, there's that. But yeah, no-fly zone, bad idea. I don't want a hot war with Russia. I feel for what's going on in Ukraine. I feel, for the people that are suffering in the middle, the civilians. But I don't think that endangering the entire fucking world with, having two nuclear armed powers getting into a hot shooting war, I don't think it's going to help Ukraine. I don't think that's going to help the United States. I don't think it's going to help anybody, maybe except for a short time, defense contractor profits. So, anybody, again, I understand why the Ukrainians are calling for it. Because they're in absolute danger, and I get that. But, people on our, on MSNBC, liberals that are calling for this, again, I understand why they would do so, why they're calling for it, but it's just not a good idea. This is a bad idea. Terrible, terrible idea. So, anyway. Yeah. All right. Let's, hold on. Let me do this. There's one more super chat here. I want to get to before I go. Reminder, Russia's been calling anything any nation does that is less than supporting Putin's invasion as an act of war. That's really suspicious. But yeah, look, it's propaganda, of course. All right. Look, I gotta go. I got some editing to do. By the way, some in the chatter pointing out how Vasha's doing a 24-hour Elden Ring stream for Ukraine. So that's based. That's pretty cool. So yeah, if you want to support that, do so. For everybody else, thank you. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all later.
I will eat your ass.
Who's got a hammer?
Like a shark, NATO, except it's
Oh no!
Obama.
Sexual anarchy.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.